Hello, YouTube. I just wanted to share some thoughts on something that I'm thinking about working on. Whether or not I actually complete it is going to be a different story. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to Mike Norman. He gave me some very kind words and plugged my channel, and as well as gave a very good explication of sort of the core of Chomsky linguistics all in one video. So thank you, Mr. Norman. And I'll post a link to his video in the comments, and please, if you're not subscribed to him, you should. He's an interesting person, an interesting thinker, I think. Aside from that, I've been working my way through Fear and Trembling by Kierkegaard, and I got to thinking about the gap in thinking between someone like Kierkegaard and someone like William Lane Craig, and how interacting with Kierkegaard's philosophy has sort of illuminated how impoverished William Lane Craig's philosophy really is, I think. And meanwhile, a couple weeks ago, I had a comment exchange on one of my videos in which I tried to sort of critique William Lane Craig's method from a Kantian perspective. So I'm thinking about doing two videos, an explication of sort of the basics of Kantian transcendental idealism, and using that as a metaphilosophical critique of William Lane Craig's work. And I also got to thinking of doing an explication of Kierkegaard's philosophy as a critique of William Lane Craig as well. These two videos would attempt to serve the function of showing what meager viewership I have. First of all, like, really how impoverished Professor Craig's method and thinking is. My Christian viewers, who, if I have any, I'm not really sure, and if they have an interest in Professor Craig's philosophy, to hopefully show them exactly why he's not to be taken seriously, and why I think he's actually a danger to Christianity, as well as a danger to philosophy. And I also, on the other hand, want to show the people who subscribe to me, who would call themselves atheists, I'd like to show them how impoverished his thinking on Christianity is, by exposing them to actually interesting and thoughtful Christian thinkers. We can debate about whether or not Kant was a Christian. I think he was. But I think that regardless of whether or not he was a Christian, he was an extremely insightful religious thinker. So yeah, there's this sort of two-pronged interest in undertaking this video series, mini-series, I guess. But I find myself, just for aesthetic reasons, wanting to round that out into a trilogy. I find myself groping to think of another thinker who would do the job. And my first thought was Nietzsche, but then I thought to myself, Nietzsche is one of the most incredible critics, of all time of anything that he criticizes. He's really a genius when it comes to criticism, and it would be silly for me to try and explicate him to criticize. I feel like I wouldn't be able to do his thought justice in this light. And then I thought about maybe Vic and Stein, because Vic and Stein was it was before the analytic and continental divide, really, but he was really taken to heart by the analytic philosophers, and you can read him as an analytic philosopher, and William Lane Craig calls himself an analytic philosopher. So it'd be nice to see somebody who could be thought of in the analytic tradition point out exactly, through it. I feel like it would be nice to do a video on Wittgenstein and William Lane Craig, but then I stopped because Wittgenstein is not a religious thinker, and I feel like it would be a disservice to look at two religious thinkers, and I don't want to just pwn William Lane Craig. You know what I mean? I also want to explicate some really interesting Christian philosophy as best as I can, and interpret and deal with some Christian philosophy. And Wittgenstein just wouldn't fit that bill. So now I find myself in a situation. I thought Hegel for a minute, because Hegel can certainly be read as a Christian. I don't necessarily think he was, but he can be read that way. But Hegel would be far too vast of an undertaking. I wouldn't presume to be able to make a video on Hegel and have it be meaningful. There would just be too much. I mean, you could say the same thing about Kant, but I think I can narrow in on Kant's philosophy. I know his philosophy well enough, and I think I can zero into his philosophy well enough to provide an explication of some of the core concepts. So yeah, in some way, this video is just a plea to whatever viewership I have to recommend a third thinker, preferably a Christian thinker, preferably someone who you consider to be profound and interesting and engaging, regardless of whether or not you agree with them. And also I would prefer somebody after Kant. I really think that, in the comment exchange I had about Kant and Kalam, and why I think Kantian philosophy negates the possibility of something like Kalam. I made the point that after Kant, philosophy changes completely. So I'd like for it to be somebody who's post-Kantian, because the focus is on meta-philosophy. Why this approach doesn't even work. Regardless of the internal logic of any of Professor Craig's arguments, why the assumption that he can go about doing philosophy in this way doesn't function. So yeah, somebody post-Kantian would be nice. Somebody Christian would be nice, and somebody profound. Those are sort of the three goals that I have. And also, I'm hoping that somebody suggests somebody who I don't know, so that I can interrogate a new thinker, because I get off on that. I'm a fan of it. So that's all. Just pointing to this idea that I had, and asking you guys for help on it. Please comment and respond and subscribe and rate and all of that. And I will post a video on Kant or Kierkegaard soon. And have a good day.